everything went wrong. Basically, we were stuck. We didn't know what was going on. And things just got worse and worse and worse. There were some clear signs. We need help.
Is it a trap?
His paediatrician just happened to drop the term. I read everything I could, looked on every website I could. There was just this absence of dads. There's got to be some dads out there somewhere that the conversation tended to be directed towards the mother. It's partly a confusion with opposition defiant disorder. I want to do it, but my legs don't work. I can't walk. He will make eye contact. We know that's not a universal aspect of autism, but all these terms feel wrong and they feel judgy, but I don't know how else to articulate it. He needs the support he needs. Not leaving the house. He's not coping with school. There's some serious stuff going on here, massive demands in the education system, right from the whole idea of going to school. No, he didn't qualify for AUTS, barely met criteria. A lot of time describing limitations of your kid. Make sure you highlight all the limitations, and it's like, why are we not focusing on how to support those? Extreme responses to and fixation on, I need that ice cream. I need that ice cream. It will wind up into, I want. Tenacity is more about a conscious choice, but routine is good until it's not. Significant fight. He was exhausted. I was exhausted. You can't yell at him. You can try and restrain him, but I can't do that anymore. And it was destroying me. Enough's enough. It's hard. You've just got to let go when you're lying next to me or when I'm hanging out with you. Your breath doesn't smell too good. I don't really enjoy that. You don't say that to another adult. As an adult, right, there's lots of demands. Paying bills, doing everything like that. Sometimes I will just go to the supermarket to buy something I don't need. I realised it was about 2 weeks and I thought to myself, I've not left the house. I was quite surprised I made it into this. One foot in front of the other, minute by minute, really. The water's boiling, you're like, oh, is it? There is a sense of loneliness. School can't is a term that gets used a lot. Most of the support actually came from the kids. I'll never forget one of the kids said, look, I don't like wearing earmuffs, but if it helps him feel okay, I'll do it. Kids are generally good if they can be. Because if a kid is being naughty, there's a reason. I keep having those panic attacks about, oh my goodness, he's not learned in ages. You might not be able to do X, Y, and Z, but you can do A and B. Take the label away, they're the same person. The more I delved and the more I looked into stuff and the more I tried to talk to people, as you said, there was just this absence of dads. There was nothing. And I started to notice that even, at specialist appointments and things like that, the conversation tended to be directed towards the mother. The support groups were tended to be mothers. And so I thought, well, there's got to be some dads out there somewhere that, are interested. So I started a Facebook group for dads of, kids with PDA profile of autism. It's growing slowly. Joined a couple of local dads groups, and just sort of, it's kind of gone, step by step, and now I'm doing a podcast. It's crazy.
In terms of the PDA, what's the difference of that with autism? Is it a manifestation of autism?
The general thought is that, or the terminology essentially is a profile of autism. It's, and I'm no expert on this, so apologies to anyone who's listening if I get anything wrong on this stuff. It's still very much a learning curve for me. But it's essentially a anxiety-driven response to the need for autism and self-direction. Autonomy, and choice and those sorts of things. Kids with PDA also, they don't see hierarchies.
When you say hierarchy, there's no parent.
There's no parent, there's no child, there's no teacher, there's no child, there's no, everyone is basically equal, and respect is earned, not given on the basis of, so they just, it's not a lack of respect. It's just simply they just don't see, you know, the line of do it because I'm the parent. It just does not land well, because so what, you're the parent, who cares, you know? Yeah. So it's, I guess a profile.
I remember my son, my eldest, not the youngest, my eldest son, sometimes I was asking him to do something, let's say a chore.
To the characters. And I have yet to meet somebody who said, no, my kid's never done that. You know, it's, so.
Everyone you meet, they are kind of the same?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, they are all different, but there are some common
similarities.
There's some similarities, yeah.
How do you distinguish that it is an autistic kind of behavior versus a PDA or maybe now ADHD? The reason why I'm asking is I saw an article somewhere, I forgot, I should have bookmarked them. Some of the traits in ADHD are somewhat similar with autism.
Yeah.
Kind of, there's a lot of overlapping there. So for you, given that in your circumstance, how do you kind of identify that this is a PDA trait, this is a autism trait, or ADHD perhaps?
I don't worry about it. For me, the diagnosis was helpful because it gave a place to start understanding, and it gave access to some resources. But whether, you know, the PDA comes along with the autism, you know, it's a profile of autism. There is some debate about that, but generally the consensus is that it's, you know, to have PDA, you are also autistic. It's a type, and the ADHD and the sensory processing stuff, it's all part and parcel of who he is, and so I've never really looked to try and identify
which is which.
Which is which. At the end of the day, he needs the support he needs, and doesn't really matter what, you know, what's causing that. So yeah.
How are you able to not map it out? I might be using some wrong terminology here. How are you able to like navigate through the whole kind of system in terms of diagnosis? Like, is it autism that came in first, or is it the ADHD first?
From what I recall, the autism, ADHD, and sensory stuff were almost simultaneously, you know, it was a package deal, if you will.
Like you have no choice.
Yeah. The PDA thing came later. Basically, we just kept going back and saying, look, something's up. You know, he's incredibly angry. That I found really hard in all of those processes is that you've got to spend a lot of time describing limitations of your kid. You know, you can't
focus on the negative.
Yeah. You've got to create this. You know, we were told time and time again. You know, make sure you highlight all the limitations, and it's like, man, you know, this kid's got so many strengths. Why are we not focusing on how to support those rather than focusing on the deficit that, you know, deficit quotation marks, that they have? You know, they have a diagnosis of autism. We know they need support. Let's focus on where their strengths are and how we better support those, you know, and acknowledge the challenges and wrap stuff around that, but don't be in a situation where you've just got to make this kid look like they're broken.
And for the parent, it sounded to me like you're rubbing more salt on wound.
Yeah.
Kind of, really.
Yeah.
And one of the, it's funny because one of the responses that they gave to me is like, we're doing a strength-based approach. Like, the more you say the strengths, and the more they will be declined because they know how to do it. Oh, so they will survive the jungle.
Yeah, they're fine. You've got look at all the strengths you've listed. Yeah.
Going back to the PDA, if someone would potentially have a PDA, I think I asked you the traits about the PDA. Mm-hmm. What do you usually do when it comes to like your experiencing a PDA, or your son is now kind of like manifesting the PDA?
It's interesting because I'm not that familiar with. We've lived the PDA path. We haven't lived the non-PDA path, if you know what I mean. So being able to sort of say, this is PDA and this isn't, is really, really challenging. But I think the things that we noticed quite strongly was that he did have a high level of anxiety. He had incredibly strong reactions to some things. I think the most time I've spent sitting in a car waiting for him to decide on his terms that he will leave the car was about 3 hours. I guess extreme responses to otherwise mundane expectations.
Like the normal thing that they should be doing, going out
Yep.
of the car.
Yeah. And fixation on a particular thing, to the point where he will become hyperfixated on something, and it will last for hours. Not a case of I want that particular ice cream. You can't have it because we don't have it. Oh, okay, that's cool. We don't have it. I've had 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours of I need that ice cream. I need that ice cream, and it will wind up into him being quite dysregulated.